But that's brilliantly said. And that goes back to that sliver in each of us. You know, that blue-haired earring, 3 earrings girl, like respects the dignity of this other individual and vice versa. And that's literally what the true church is supposed to be. Yeah. It's supposed to be this organic body that moves through these shitty systems that we've built, these vulnerable, like greed and ego-driven systems. And when you look at the church, the institution, it's all out of order. We've just built roles because the institution demanded that role. We built the institution that now needs that role. And so your friend, like, or your editor, like, I feel like he's almost he's almost come to understand it, but it's still, to Christ's point in most of the Gospels, we've built traditions and call it doctrine. I have everything I need to understand that book. I've got 2 eyes that work, like a mouth that can speak, and we abdicate our roles so much. Like, I abdicate my role for teaching my daughter the scriptures. I abdicate my role for prayer because I'm tired with her. I abdicate my role to make sure, like, she's learning what I think she should learn in schools because I don't have time. It's like, same thing. Yeah, I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes, but it's like, in America, we've cluttered our lives so much that we forgot making the main thing, which is family. And so I agree with that. I need to take, so that's why we always say our first ministry, like when you look at biblical ministry, is my family. Like, if I cannot find time to teach my daughter the scriptures and I believe this is my salvation, like Christ is, my order is way off.
You know what though? And this does need to be said, and I'm not saying your order's not off with that, but I'd love your guys' thoughts on this. 30 years ago, I believe in the American dream. I believe it's still alive. I believe this is the best place to live. I think you can go make something of yourself, and I'd like to think, there's plenty of examples out there listening right now of you guys who can attest to that. That said, I would never argue with the fact that the deck has been stacked much harder than it used to be. And if we're looking at the post 9/11 world, but more specifically the post financial crisis world, and the world since the beginning of the 1980s, when you can go back and see that V form on the chart where the middle class gets legislated away, we are now in a position where society has generationally placed all these expectations on people and families to the point that families are being monetized away. People can't afford to have kids. And then the people that do, well, guess what? They got to pay the bills, and their check hasn't, their salary hasn't kept up with the inflation that's happened over the past even 10 years, to the point that they struggle not only to put food on the table, but how the fuck am I going to put a kid through college or whatever? And so maybe they haven't, if they're a Christian or something like that, or any religion, they haven't fully prioritized the North Star of their religion, but through no fault of their own, the world has sent so many challenges their way that hasn't even been a realistic option. And I know that's like not as like
the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole. I was like, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. Was dual income, the need for dual income.
Okay, well, let's go down it.
Because I gotta piss. Can I go?
Oh yeah. We'll be right back. Just tell me next time.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man.
On both. All right, we're back. Before we get into that, we're going to talk about dual income and something like that. We just got off air and saw we're recording this. Charlie Kirk just got shot, and it's, I don't know, it was an hour ago. So this is coming out probably a couple weeks after we record. So hopefully there was some sort of good outcome here, but that did not look good. And like, I don't care what you think about what people say or what you agree with or not. There's just something really broken in society that stuff like this happens. Everyone right now is fighting over also what happened to that poor girl on that train the other day in Charlotte. It was just viciously attacked. And it's just like, I got the picture outside the studio of Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York, and that's the scene where he's looking at Leonardo DiCaprio and non sequitur says civilization is crumbling. And I really am an optimist, but sometimes it's hard not to look at that and wonder, like, man, Was that movie they were making while September 11th was happening, really onto something there?
Yeah. That's the most horrific. Like I am just disgusted at that. And, I didn't know Charlie, or I don't know Charlie personally, but that society is just crumbling. And so my prayers are with Charlie and his family. And I know our prayers are, because it's just so sad. Like you have a father, who's, I always say to people who are dissenters against our opinion or whatever, is we're just on the opposite sides of the same coin. Like you and I are actually brothers or sisters or whatever. And we don't see, we were talking about that freaking sliver in you and in me. And when we don't see that, when everything is chance, Julian, when life doesn't fucking matter, like I'll go out guns blazing. And that's what we're missing, is we're missing hope, and we're missing that sliver in you and sliver in me and sliver in Charlie, whether I agree with Charlie or not. Like he is created for something bigger than just chance. And we take it, just like the train, just like that horrific thing on the train. Like when we have no hope, we just have no value in life. And so I think it's ironic that we were talking about the pendulum with Jesus and where you fall in that pendulum, because it's like when Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, like that's what I believe society is missing right now. And
that's order.
Yeah. It's just so sickening to see.
I just have a pit in my stomach. I don't.
Where does this, like you mentioned this, right? Like society is crumbling, and that's like within our America. Like, and you see all these, yesterday there was the strike in Qatar. Qatar had just donated that plane to Trump, right? And they're investing a lot of money in the United States, and then they got struck, and then you have all these nations across the world that are fighting each other, and then we have all this infighting going on within the United States. Like, where do you think this goes?
I mean, I'm a YouTuber, so I don't know.
But you say that, but you've dedicated your life and career to like a lot of these issues, right? And researching and talking about them and interviewing different people and from different walks of life, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you think we end up in a civil type war here?
Again, I'm an optimist. Are there things that I'll say like, oh, I'm cynical about this or that, and I really am? Yes, but like I do like to see the good in people. I don't think we would end up in something like that, and I'm very careful about bringing. That is a big term, and part of it is also you can't get caught up in the world you live in. I live in a world where a job of mine is to understand what's happening on the internet. And there's a lot of people who care about that, but there's a lot of people who don't. And I've always talked about this Wawa theory. When I was living in my parents' house during COVID for 3.5 years building this thing, I was sociable in the fact that people came through the house. But I locked myself off from the world while I was building this. And so one of the rare respites, or whatever, if that's a proper use of that term, I would get is when I would pick up guests from the airport. On the way home, we'd stop at Wawa, and I'd, get them whatever they wanted before the podcast. And when things were getting weird, I mean, they were weird the whole time, but when shit would be going down online, I would just watch people in the Wawa, and I would see the pink-haired girl with 3 nose rings holding the door for the guy with the Nam hat. And there was no or anything like that. I was like, oh, thank you so much. And people went about their life. And I realized, I'm like, those two people, if they were behind keyboards right now, if they are, would probably be dehumanizing each other. But in the real world, it's not the keyboard. Sometimes, though, we see that come out in like what we just saw, and that's what scares me. That's where I worry about, like, would people go in the streets with stuff, and I don't want to see that, and I think I take it really seriously to have whatever responsibility I have doing what I do, to have voices represented across the spectrum of different ideas. Obviously, I'm a generalist. I do a lot of different topics, but also to try to not go to extremes with, what, regardless of what side it's on, with people who have extreme beliefs, and that's for someone else to do. You know what I mean? I like to think the average person is the average person, and we'll be all right. That's kind of my long-winded answer. But yeah, when you see stuff like that, it's, that's horrific.
But that's brilliantly said. And that goes back to that sliver in each of us. That blue-haired earring, 3 earrings girl, like, respects the dignity of this other individual and vice versa. And that's literally what the true church is supposed to be. Yeah. It's supposed to be this organic body that moves through these shitty systems that we've built. These vulnerable, like, greed and ego-driven systems. And when the church isn't the church, everything else goes to shit. And the church is not the church. And it's like, that's all I can say to that literally disgusting video. And then the other one of the girl on the train. The church has totally lost its way. And so how can any other system find its way if the literal beacon of light is dark as hell?
Well, like, you defined it well today when you separate church from, like, physical church or organizational church or whatever. You're saying the church is supposed to be like, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's really supposed to get the core of what it is, which is the belief in, like, Jesus and God and doing things the right way. I think, as annoying as it is to see some of these organizations take advantage of this, and you guys are doing a great job exposing that, as you should. If I were looking at it from your perspective as, like, true Christians who want the right things, you do have to say, in the last 2 or 3 years, whatever it is, I don't know, but there's a massive movement publicly, and I would say, like, even to define it, like, on social media, of, like, people becoming Christians or becoming spiritual or becoming religion and, turn into something that's higher than themselves. And you know what? Sometimes I'll see it and I'm like, someone feels like a bandwagon jumper. But a lot of times I see it and I'm like, dude, good for that person. They seem like they're really into that and they found some peace. And there's something in the world. Maybe it was COVID itself or whatever came with that. I don't know. Something in the world maybe moved that in that direction. Do you see that too?
When that happens, that creates one of the most vulnerable bodies of people. You can call it baby Christians, but Nathan, if you want to talk a little bit about, like, the scriptural references to that, along with, like, why Jesus said that was such a protected group.
Yeah, Jesus said, "I'd rather have a millstone hung around someone's neck and thrown into the water and kill him, than lead a baby astray or lead a child astray." And he was speaking about young Christians. So when you find faith, you have the utmost joy, which we see all over social media. Where do you go from there? If you walk into Hillsong or one of these mega churches, like, you're officially about to be fed a false gospel, something that looks nothing like Christ.
Right.
So I feel like our role is more important than ever, the religion business role, because we're here. I believe we're preaching the gospel. I believe we're preaching who Christ is, how we should live our life. And that's what this whole wave of young baby Christians needs to hear. They need to know that, hey, read the Bible cover to cover. It's actually not that hard when you read it as a history book because it comes alive. Like, start praying. Get in prayer alone. Those two things are the greatest tools for you to expand your faith and deepen your faith. And, like, there was a Stanford study done. There was a mega church out of Chicago, one of the first in the U.S., 30,000 seats. To their hat, I tipped my hat to leadership at this time. I think it was 98 or late 90s. They hired Stanford and their economists to study how their congregants could deepen their faith, because congregants were kind of frustrated. It was a conveyor belt, and this is the danger of these systems. These baby Christians come in, sit for 6 months, give their money. It's all like fun and games, and then they just stop coming. Yeah. The only reason why they keep their numbers up is because a new person sits in that seat for 6 months and then leaves. New person sits in that seat and leaves. And so the church was like, dang, how can we retain these amazing young believers, and how can we deepen their faith? Stanford does this in-depth study. I think it was over 2 years. They come back with 2 things: read your Bible alone and pray alone. That's how you deepen your faith. Everything else is just man-made tradition. And so what everybody, like, I'm just trying to correlate it back to Charlie. Like, you are right. There's this huge wave of, a lot of pastors are screaming revival, but it's like, revival to what? Like, to singing more songs,
right?
To giving you more money? Like, unless the person's heart is changed and they live out, because it says faith without works is dead, and they live out carrying that cross, that's what the world needs more than ever right now. The world needs literally people that are willing to sit with that dude who's so broken that he feels his only resort is to shoot Charlie. Like, that dude needs to be like loved on. Somewhere in his life, his ecclesia, there was no body around him. And so he just gave up, and he goes, this is the last thing. That career criminal who stabbed that poor girl, like, that is demonic.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.